The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mark.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and good evening to everyone. I just want to remind everybody who is attending that the broadcast is being recorded. And also that as the evening goes on in our discussions, if you have questions or comments in the control panel, there is a box where you can write your question or your comment for us to monitor, and that really is the best way for us to see any question or comment that you have and be able to respond to it. So please use that question box if you want to communicate with us. So with that, let's start with open forum. Does anybody from the board have anything from open forum? Okay. Seeing none, and I don't have anything tonight, we can move on to, we cannot move on yet because it's a public hearing, so we have to wait 3 minutes before we can open our public hearing. But so long as we are waiting, why don't we fill in the time with approving our minutes? We have minutes for approval for our regular session of June 9th and June 20th. Then we have June 24th, which is a joint Board of Selectmen meeting with the Town and School Safety Task Force, and July 16th, which is also a joint meeting with the Town and School Safety Task Force. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I don't know if it's my, okay. All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Abstain. I wasn't part of it yet.
And I. Okay. So that takes care of our minutes, and let's do our consent agenda. We have a consent agenda for a use of the town common for a free community.
Can you all hear Andrea? I can't hear you, Andrea.
I can hear her.
Okay, well,
I can hear her too. You can? Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
You need your Madonna headphones on.
okay. Is this better? Different?
We can hear you now, but we could also hear you before.
Yeah.
Okay. Jody? Jody, can you hear me?
Jody, can you hear me? Can you hear anybody?
Can you hear anyone, Jody?
Okay, she's good.
Okay, but you're on mute, so we can't hear you right now. All right. We're doing the consent agenda and the event, a free community yoga event to benefit Mass COVID-19 Relief Fund. The applicant is Melissa Matheson and Scott Casa of Wellbeing Fitness. If you remember, this was on our last agenda, but there was a conflict. So we previously approved the dates of Sunday, August 16th, 2020, or Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. But the applicants are requesting a change for the rain date for Saturday, August 29th, 2020, and the time is from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. So we're just changing the rain date that we previously approved. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Scott,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Anita,
Aye.
and I. Okay, so now we can go back to our 7:05 p.m. item, which is a public hearing on a request for a change of manager for the all alcohol club license for NAB American Legion Post 437 Inc. To Lori A. Gaudette. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, Anita,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
okay. Patty Doobie, is everything in order? I know Patty's out there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's great. Awesome. Yes, here I am. This has been gone over and everything is in order. Lori is ready to assume the duties and
That's all she's got.
Okay.
that's all I got.
Sounds good.
All right. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, I don't see any. So is there a motion to approve the change of license?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Is
Second.
there a second? And all those in favor, Anita,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
And now I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, Mark,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
aye. Okay. So we are at our 7:10 p.m. item. And our 7:10 p.m. item is a discussion to establish a charge for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group and to consider the membership. So before we begin this discussion, the select board would like to make it clear that the DEI committee is being established to review the town's departmental policies and procedures along with the schools to ensure that they foster an environment of diversity and inclusion and that they do not discriminate against any person or group on account of race, national origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, age, or disability. We've heard the concerns expressed by residents regarding acts of racism and discrimination, and the board is committed to addressing those concerns. Our goal is to leverage our department's strengths, while at the same time we pursue improvements to address biases, prejudices, and cultural stereotypes that may affect our interactions with our communities of color, religious groups, the LGBTQ community, disabled individuals, and any other disenfranchised groups. The town manager, in an effort to increase town employee and board members' awareness, has already arranged for cultural awareness and diversity training, which will be required for all town employees. It's also being offered to all board and committee members who may be interested. The creation of the DEI committee will help to further this goal. For this committee to be successful, for there to be positive change, everyone needs to be prepared to engage in some difficult conversations and discussions. These conversations and discussions need to take place in an atmosphere of respect and openness. Lines have been drawn in the sand between various advocacy groups. As a board, we do not believe that a dynamic that forces taking sides will be productive. We believe that we can both support and value all town employees and work together towards a more diverse, fair, and just community. We are at a moment in time where we can either all continue to stay in our old camps, or we can decide to work together to look at ways to improve our town and to address issues of racism, discrimination, and hatred that have been raised. The board is committed to doing this work, but it will require people to start talking with one another and not at one another. And so as we begin this discussion about establishing the DEI committee, the board hopes that everybody keeps that in mind as we move forward with this discussion and the committee itself. So with that, Tom or Anita, I know that you've drafted at least a starting point for us to talk about the charge for the committee. So maybe if one of you sort of wants to talk, give us a little background, what you've done, and then talk us through at least, as I said, the draft of the charge you provided to us, then we can move forward from there.
Happy to, Andrea. And I did just want to really echo the group statement and say that I really believe both of the following things are true. I think this is a great opportunity for us to do better and listen and serve the diverse populations in town. And at the same time, I respect and value the work of our town employees, including and especially our police officers. So I regret the divisive tone, and I hope we can now take concrete steps to move forward together and find better solutions for all of our diverse communities in town. If we could get, Eric, if you could bring up the materials that we shared in the packet. Maybe I'll walk through what's there, and Anita can correct my mistakes, and then we can open up for discussion. If you could bring up the PowerPoint, that would be best.
Okay.
I see what you have here and appreciate that. When we're editing the language, if that happens, that'll be very valuable. So we're really just going to share, if we go to the second slide, I'm just going to describe what the proposed charter is and a little bit of the reasoning behind this, and then we'll talk about the proposed composition and a little bit of the reasoning behind that. Last time we were here on this topic, Anita shared a number of examples from other towns. So we did spend a lot of time looking at those. We had some discussion together about whether it was important to start the DEI committee really at the same time as the separate reporting channel that we'd identified as important. After thinking about it and looking at some of the other town structures and talking to some community members of color, we thought it really made more sense for us to start with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and start with a broader charter. This was our recommendation because we'll really benefit from having the input of some of the diverse communities that are on this committee and helping us see where the areas of greatest need are. And so the first thing we have here in the proposed charter really emphasizes that this committee would serve as an advisory group to the select board and the school committee. So it's not a policy making organization, but it is an organization that would help us understand the needs of the community better and make recommendations to those two committees. We also wanted to make a broad and inclusive list of some of the diverse communities that we're hoping to listen to and get closer to and better serve. And I'll just mention what we have here. So race, creed, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, veterans status, age, or disability. And obviously disability includes physical disabilities and potential mental disabilities. So we do want this committee to take a broad look at these important groups in town and make sure that we're doing our best to listen and serve those groups. And then the third is really the first thing we would be asking the select board and the school committee of this group, which would be to do really a community needs assessment and come back and make recommendations to us about the areas of greatest need and greatest importance for us to place our focus first. In some of the charters that other towns have, there's a lot of very specific action item type recommendations. And after reflecting on it, we felt we really would like this committee to help us decide what those action items are. And so leave this first step as a fairly broad invitation to to help us really understand what the community needs and help prioritize where we should focus from here. Eric, if you could go to the next, and then we can open up for question and discussion on both topics, composition and the committee. So the makeup we propose is to have 9 voting member seats. These would be community members who we would hope would represent these diverse groups and have some connection with these diverse groups, and also have some knowledge of how to do this sort of work as a committee. Explicitly, we're proposing that the select board, school committee, and town manager have liaison positions to this committee, but not be voting members, because we really want this to be a committee, or our proposal is to have this be a committee that really brings forward the voices of the community, and then those recommendations will turn into action either with the select board, school committee, or town manager. And because there's so much intersection between what's happening on the playgrounds, the schools, public spaces, and interaction with different town functions, we thought it was important to make this a jointly appointed committee by both the select board and the school committee, and really be responsible for bringing forward suggestions to both of us on these important areas. And I will mention that we have been in contact with the school committee and the school committee chair, and the school committee chair has shared her interest and her belief that the school committee would like to be joint partners in this effort in the way that we've described. So, Anita, have I missed anything by way of overview before we open up to discussion?
I just wanted to add that I know that the school side has a diversity inclusion team that is moving forward, and this isn't in place of or to take over that team at all, but we understand that there's still going to be activities and strategies specifically that's just more targeted for the schools, but we still believe in sort of this this partnership of this sort of umbrella committee together.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, so I guess let me open it up to the board first for comments about what's being proposed. Mark?
Wasn't trying to go first, but no one else was raising their hand. So, Anita and Tom, thank you for beginning to put this together. I do have a few concerns and some comments. Let me first talk about the makeup of the committee. So I have questions like, what are the characteristics that we're looking for out of these 9 members? What qualifies somebody to be on this committee? How are we going to select who's on it, and what issues are we creating by not selecting someone? So, you know, I can imagine some number over 9 volunteering for this committee, and we don't have any criteria about who is going to be on it and with what credentials, with the questions I asked previously. And I'm concerned about us not having those credentials and then choosing people and then being accused of why we're not choosing whoever we didn't choose. So I think, I don't know if 9 is the right number. Let's assume that it is, but I do believe before we, ever even, start entertaining a discussion about who the 9 might be, that we set what it is that we're looking for. And that's both personal and professional backgrounds, right? If these are people who are supposed to be representing a particular charge, then we need to make sure that they've got, something that we're looking for. And I can't tell you what that is, but I think we need a discussion on that. So that's kind of my first set of points. I've got 2 other points. So if you want to go one by one, that's up to you guys.
Let's go one by one, okay?
Okay.
It just makes it easier. Tom?
So excellent points, Mark. One thing that One of the towns that we studied did well was they described what sort of the membership criteria would be, and it was familiarity with the community and experience with some of the communities in town, skills beneficial to performing the work, and then a commitment to pursuing this over the time required. Maybe one idea that we don't have prepared for tonight, but we could put together is both that sort of list of guiding criteria, and then also, I think by way of receiving applications, the town citizen activity form is a great tool, but it doesn't get to some of the important questions I think we'd want to ask. And
Right.
so the other thing I think I'd recommend is that we agree on a list of questions that we ask to all candidates in the same format, in the same way, so that
Right.
at some future point when we're deciding, we'll again have this agreed criteria, and we'll have a much more detailed picture from each of the applicants.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Scott?
Just one observation that we have many of our committees we sort of pick based upon, background, typically education or experience. But the unique one I think is quite close to this is the Commission on Disabilities. And in that one, you do have a sort of set of reserved seats, if you will, for those with disabilities, those who have a family member, those who are a caretaker, those of a child, then like one person at large. So, not that we want to have any reserve seats here, but in terms of the notion of making sure we have representatives from each community, maybe we want to think about some form of demographic desirability that we want to have included.
Okay, Andrew, do you want me to go
Sure,
on with the
yeah.
other point? Okay, Eric, can you go up to the charter page, please? Thank you. So I have a few comments here as well. So there's a part here that talks about conducting an assessment. So really two questions there. How is this assessment going to be done without the virtue of professionals? So what are the criteria that we're going to be doing an assessment on? And I certainly hope that whoever's doing the assessment has some background in how to do this. And if it's a professional that we want to hire, I think we need to understand where the funds are coming from to do it. And then the second point is who's being assessed. So are we assessing town employees? Are we assessing school employees? Are we assessing boards and committees? Are we assessing the 23,000 residents in town where a lot of this behavior happens as well? So I'm concerned that we're asking for an assessment to be done in the charter, but we don't have, again, similar to the makeup of the committee, we really don't know what it is that we're asking to be done. And I think we need to spend some time on that as well. So, and my last comment on the charter portion is, I think, again, it's a lot of words. And as I was trying to think about what it is we're trying to do, it seems to me that what we're looking for is how do we explore areas of opportunity within the town and school environments, as well as the community at large, on improving the acceptance of diversity of all kinds. So something like that helps to kind of more clearly define what it is we're assessing, but there's still some questions about who's doing the assessing. So I have those few questions regarding the charter itself. Anita's got her hand up.
Anita, yeah.
I just wanted to kind of maybe follow up around the community assessment piece and just the professionals who would be conducting it or what that would look like. And I think that could be part of our follow-up questions. And after the citizen activity forms are submitted, what sort of professional background did you have that you'd be able to contribute to a community assessment? And I don't know if we would want to define what that looks like or if we want the committee to define what the community assessment could look like. And I don't know, I'm leaving that up, I guess, for discussion. But I feel like in terms of professionalism and the background, I think we might be able to get that in the community without, but just based off some of the people who we've met so far.
So Anita, can I just push back on one thing on that?
Yeah.
So it still comes down to who's being assessed.
Yeah.
So are we assessing employees of the town and the school? Or are we assessing boards and committees as well? Or are we assessing the behavior of all of our residents, including those people?
So I can push back. What was that?
Trains going by.
It's a train near my house.
So Mark, so here's sort of at least my thought and my understanding. I did not take this to be a committee that was going to be assessing individuals or people or committees or boards. I took my vision of this committee was that it was going to be looking at and assessing our policies and our procedures to then see what, if any, impact they're having on our community, on our residents, and on people. And if those policies and procedures are missing elements that would be more inclusive and that would be encouraging diversity. If for some reason I hope we don't, but if we have a policy that in some way is discriminatory, that needs to be corrected. So my thought about this initial committee was that it was going to be looking at policies and procedures and not people, and not assessing people, because I think when you start to assess people and what their sort of their behavior and what they're doing, I think you start going down a very slippery slope right now, at least with respect to this particular committee. And then you get into issues of employment law and things like that. And I don't think that's where, at least that's not where I was envisioning that this committee was going. So those are my thoughts. Anita had her hand up, and then Tom.
Yeah, and I agree with Andrea, and maybe Mark, your comment is really just about scope or something, because I don't think we could really do a community assessment of residents in town, and I don't know if that would really be fair. But I also want to say that I think we are trying to channel a lot of stuff through this committee, but this committee is not going to answer everything, and so we still have to think of what those other strategies are. So if there's still a hole or a gap with figuring out how to deal with or improve culture in town that's not specific to policies or town policies, and that's a different strategy that can work in collaboration with this committee. But I still think we just can't do everything through this committee.
So community assessment's the wrong term.
Well, okay, we could change it.
We just need to define these things, that's all.
Yeah.
I'm Tom, and then Scott.
I thought Mark's language suggestion was good, and would certainly be open to adding it. I think it would belong in the third bullet there. And I just want to share some of the things that other towns, when they've embarked on this, have done is do more targeted outreach. I think we've heard from some voices, but there's probably other voices that we'd like to hear from. And so another action or activity that one of these committees might typically undertake would be to say, okay, we want to make sure we've got some kind of dialogue and engagement with, say, the LGBTQ community or the Jewish community, and make sure that they've had some sort of connection and some sort of opportunity to listen to the sort of position and needs of those groups. So in my mind, that was part of what the community assessment would be, not necessarily any kind of detailed, systematic, personnel review, but more maybe both sort of a policy review and maybe even before that, an opportunity to go out and make sure we've really got a clear picture of where the needs are.
Scott?
Yeah, so I think, two thoughts. One is along the lines of what Anita, Mark, and Tom have outlined, which is, this is meant to be an advisory board to the select board, advisory committee to the select board and school committee. So whatever they respond with has to be things we can control. We can't control behavior of individual citizens. It has to be, I think, policies and procedures. So maybe it is a policy assessment to identify the needs. But also, I'm wondering, is this really a charter, or is this really a maybe a first steps? I mean, we said all along we don't quite know what our ultimate goal is, other than improved relations and opportunities and openness in this process. So, the first step is identifying what policies might need to be changing, but it seems it's more that this chart will evolve with time. Once you get to the assessment phase, there's a phase 2, and so is this really sort of first objectives for the committee, as opposed to a charter? And that's right now, that's wordsmithing, but I want to be clear that the end goal is not an assessment. The end goal is action based upon that assessment.
I think that's true. And I do think, Scott, that this is an evolving sort of, or will be an evolving committee. And whether it's, this committee that, goes through the first step of assessment and makes recommendations to the select board and the school committee, and then there's a subsequent committee or the same committee that its next steps are how to implementation or outreach with respect to the recommendations and how they're going to be received. So I don't think we're not going to sort of capture it, I think, all at once.
Mhm.
And that's, I see this as sort of ongoing throughout the next months, year, as opposed to, this is a committee that, gives its, reports back to us on December 1st, and then, that's it. It goes away. It may go away in that form, but I don't believe that it will, I think that it will either be reestablished, for the next steps as either an ongoing committee, or, as I said, an open to new members. So. Mark?
Sorry, I think Anita had her hand up first.
Well, you said a lot what I was going to say, Andrea, so then I was just like, eh.
Okay.
But I was thinking that maybe if we wanted to do any wordsmithing, it could be like ongoing policy assessments, and then December 1st is the first report that comes to us, because I do think this is a huge ask. And if we want a really thorough assessment, it's going to take a while, especially but I don't know, that's my thought.
Yeah, so again, I think we need to spend some time really defining what this is. I think these are great words and stuff, but there are no actions. We don't understand whatever the definition of the group is that we still have to do. That has to be based on whatever this is. The backgrounds of people that we're looking for are going to be based on whatever this says we are going to need to do. And we can't do either at this point, in my opinion. So I really do think that, we need to spend some time thinking about what is it that this, whether it's a charter or something else, as Scott was referencing, there needs to be something that we can define. This is so broad right now. If I were on a committee or appointed to a committee, I wouldn't even know what to do. I don't even know who or what I'm assessing. We had a discussion about that it's town and school departments. Maybe schools already have one. How is ours going to be different? Policies and procedures. Is it departmental policies and procedures? Do we even know what those are? And is that what we're asking these folks to do? Is to look at those and determine where there's areas of opportunity to improve on those, to do a better job at accepting diversity. Yeah, I can't support it in this way, but I do support the need to move forward and continue to define.
Tom.
I think Mark hits on a sort of central point, which is we went into it thinking just what you're talking about, Mark. How well defined can it be? Can we get very specific about exactly what the mandate is? And decided after reflecting and talking to people in the communities of color that we connected with, we really need their input in this initial stage to help us to know what areas of investigation and to prioritize. So you've hit on the central issue. The question is, do we impanel this group with people representing these community groups and ask them to help us define sort of what the most valuable areas for review and the most important sort of outreach to do with communities should be? I would be a lot more confident in the judgment of this committee than I would be in our ability to get very specific at this point about what deliverables should look like. And so that's why I would recommend and proposing that we take this approach. I certainly don't resist clarifying language here, but the proposal I'm making is that that Nita and I are making, is that we take this sort of first initial position with the goal of having this committee help us define where best to focus and where the needs are that need to be met.
Scott.
So as I think about what I wanted for this committee back when we first discussed it, it was something to tell us what the town does well, and more important, what it does not do well. And so it's not really so much policies and procedures, because I think, frankly, you can get lost in policies and procedures, and you almost need to have more expertise in town government than the average citizen would have, just because they aren't exposed to how town policy works. But what I really want to know is, things like, for example, does the library have enough books on certain religions, ethnic groups, disabilities? I mean, as our resource of knowledge, do we have the right mix in the library? As a educational platform, do we teach the right kinds of things in schools? And so it's not just about, perhaps a policy about, some department. It's really more, what are we missing as a town that we should be considering? And those are examples. There's lots. That's why we need to hear from people who are more directly affected than perhaps I am as a middle-aged white male. But just if I'm thinking through what we might be missing, those were things that popped to mind, and not really policies. They're things we could budget for better in the future, change priorities, but not really policies. On how we capture that dynamic, I think you know where I'm going with it.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Yeah, so
sorry.
Yeah. So I got to be honest. If we're asking this group to define for the library trustees what books they are short of, we are way in the weeds beyond where I thought this thing was headed. We have a community that are parts of the community that apparently feel that there are that we're not accepting of their diversities, whatever they happen to be. And there's all kinds, and some are louder than others. So there are areas of opportunity within the town and the school that I'm assuming we want to understand at a broad level, so that we can then determine which groups need to attack those. But then we better understand what the backgrounds are of the people that we're going to be asking to be on this committee before we get too much further. Because to find the 9 people who represent all of this and can do so in an objective and honest way puts an enormous task on us to make that determination when there's 20 people or more who may think they deserve to be on this committee. So I think so if we want to start with the people and not with the charter, that's fine, but we better define quickly what those questions are that we want these candidates to ask so that we can determine which ones. But it's a heavy load.
Scott.
Just to be clear, okay, I'm not suggesting that this committee tells the library trustees what books to buy. I think that was an example. But I did have the privilege of sitting in on the library planning process, which they conduct every 2 years, as part of a panel, and heard other folks in town say, we'd love to have this, this, and this in the library. So I think the library is very open to hearing, what can we do to help? And so my only point was, we are assuming facts, not evidence here. Okay, we don't know what people want, but there should be a group broad enough with a mission broad enough to understand some about policies, could be about budget priorities too. So just to be clear, it's not pigeonholing and micromanaging, it's examples of things you probably just don't think of, but this group may in fact have someone bring it up.
Tom.
So just to be clear, I know we're in the middle of this discussion, but I believe my position is still to be in favor to move forward with something like this, maybe with some edited language, but with a broad charter and with a composition like we've talked about. And I'd be happy to take the action item or support anyone else who does to help sort of lay out the additional questions that we'd like to ask and borrow some good ideas for sort of what we're looking for in terms of composition on this committee, in terms of skills, in terms of backgrounds and experiences they can represent to the committee. And I think we definitely need that. So, I'd be happy to take that on or support someone else in doing that for the next time we meet. So we have sort of both general criteria and then also the questions that we want to ask the candidates well defined.
Well, so first of all, Tom, thank you for volunteering. I don't think anybody's going to say, no, don't do that. But I agree. We have been talking about forming a committee for, 6 weeks now, or maybe even 8 weeks. And I think that, we need actually to start taking concrete steps to getting this committee in place. And, maybe to start with, it's, as I said, it's part of an evolution, and perhaps what we start with is not exactly where the committee, ends up going, and we have to sort of adjust along the way. But I think we need to start to do something, and we need to put something in place here, so that we can start to establish, to have a committee to do, I think, all, the things that we're talking about, where are the opportunities? What are our policies? We need to hear from people, from the diverse communities in our town to what, as I think either Scott or Tom said, I can't remember whom at this point, what do they think is missing? What do they think is needed? Because the 5 of us certainly can't answer that question. And in terms of, the number, is nine too small? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that we need to decide that tonight, but I also think that we need to, remind everyone and folks is that, this will be a town committee. Its meetings will be open, they will be publicized. And so anybody who wants to participate and who wants to be heard and wants to be a part of that committee will be able to attend and will be able to voice their opinions and to have their thoughts heard, even if they ultimately are not a voting member. There's still room, and I would encourage anybody and everyone who is interested to participate in this, because I think the only way we really do move forward and make concrete improvements that are lasting and also address the issues is if we start hearing from folks, and if we start this dialogue, and if this is the catalyst, if this committee is the catalyst to do that, then I think we should be proceeding in that direction. Anita?
Yeah, and I just hope that they're all going to put forward this expectation that the people who are going to be appointed to this committee are going to work with our established committees and professionals and council, everyone who's already here, right? We've got like 40, I don't know how many committees we have in town, but we have so many. And I just want to make sure that nobody's going to be telling someone else how to do their job, but there's going to be a conversation of, hey, I see an issue here. Can we talk about what the policy is and have a conversation? I have a really specific example with Jody where I was trying to figure out, learn more about our hiring practices on the town side. And she's like, you know what, Anita, we have a personnel advisory committee, and they include directors of HR. And so I'm like, let's have a conversation. I'm not going to tell people how to do their job, but let's leverage the volunteers and committees and everything that we have in place too. So, yeah, good man.
Okay, so let's talk about
Looks like Mark
moving
has a question.
forward. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Sorry.
That's okay.
I see you.
So-
I got it.
I want to make sure that because Anita, I understand completely what you're saying, but I certainly hope we're not asking this committee to go off and have conversations with Jody's direct reports or Bill's direct reports without the two of them.
Well, the Personnel Advisory Committee is not a direct report to Jody. It's one of our committees in town, right, Jody? Or maybe this was a bad example, but.
No.
Yes, the Personnel Advisory Committee is a committee, but I think Mark is talking about employees. Are you, Mark?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Mhm.
So, Anita, you brought up the example, the committee should go be able to talk to people about what's going on. That should not, if you're talking to a department head, their boss should be in the room when the polite thing to do would be to have their boss in the room when that happens. Unless we know, again, unless it's completely defined on what these people are doing. So.
Okay, so let's talk about where we go from here, okay? And what we're actually going to do and some action items that we're going to take. Tom, you had volunteered to put together a sort of some follow-up, some questions for folks who are going to be applying for them to answer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I can see you nodding your head, but some people may not be able to see that, Tom. So
I will speak
that's
up.
why. And then, then in terms of the charge, the mission, do we want to try and better define that here? Do you, Anita, want to take the comments that you've received tonight and work on it and bring it back? What is your pleasure?
I'd be happy to take the input on language advice. The big decision is, are we comfortable setting off with a broader sort of definition like is here, and letting the committee have a lot of input about exactly sort of what the first areas of focus would be. So if we're basically doing an edit, but it's largely this concept, very happy to take that on. If there's a feeling in the board that it needs to be much more detailed with more specific deliverables and action items, that wouldn't be my recommendation. But if that was the will of the board, then that would be a more substantial undertaking.
Scott?
Just to be perfectly clear in my own mind, I mean, I'm thinking that we say community assessment, that involves some kind of survey, correct, of the community. That this is not 9 individuals with opinions. This is 9 individuals tasked with finding out the opinions of 23,000 or so people, right? So you want that to be kind of sort of open to let us have that bandwidth of responses. So I'm fine with it being open as long as we're clear that this is an outreach to create lots of input from diverse voices.
Okay, if people feel like there's some improvements to be made here with some of the editing, we can take on proposing what we'll hope will be a final version for a vote for next time, Andrea, if that's what you're suggesting.
I mean,
Mhm.
I do think we want to have somebody on that panel who's got some background in surveying, so we get the questions phrased, correctly and good response rates. But that's the only thing I would require right now.
Yeah, that's actually one of the suggestions, Scott. Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. That's one of the
Yes, go ahead.
these little position definitions that Mark, I think, was referring to help us kind of clarify who we're looking for. One of the things that's covered there is relevant skills, which includes survey design and interpretation of data, et cetera.
Okay. We have a bunch of more comments, I think, than particular questions. So let me just run through these really quick. They might help, Tom, you and Anita, just as you're thinking about this, moving forward. There is one question. It's actually, it's from Jenny Kravitz and Jody. She's asking about the specifics of the training that you've already lined up. And so Jenny and Jody, I'm going to ask that the two of you talk offline, and Jody, you can talk with Jenny about what you've already arranged, and she's got some specific questions, and answer those questions, okay? Because I think that I can't answer her questions, to be honest with you, so I think you're the person who needs to answer them, okay?
I'd be happy to, if Jenny, if you could email me so we can communicate, that'd be great. Thank you.
And they're also, Jody, they're on our questions, so when at the end of the meeting, you can get them that way too.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
We have a question: is the PowerPoint available online, or is it a work in progress? It is obviously a work in progress. It's also available online if you go to the town's website and you go to the Board of Selectmen's website, and you click on our package of materials for tonight's meeting. You will find it there. Could you talk about how you chose the number 9 for the membership? It's a small team for a 12-1 deliverable. I think, I don't know that we have actually agreed tonight and set the number in stone as 9, but we can certainly come back to that and determine whether it's an appropriate number or not. There was a comment that just talked about assessments are typically done on policies and organizational structures and procedures, not individuals. We talked about that. Perhaps impact assessment rather than community assessment is better phraseology. There's a comment basically talking about your comment, Scott, about using the library holdings, but I think you clarified you did not mean that the committee was going to assess the holdings of the library and then offer suggestions as to what it should be purchasing or procuring. So I think we have clarified that. There are some folks who have offered to assist. We should also, a category we should take into consideration is income disparity. We did not mention that. So that's something we should be mindful of. And then a question: will there be any allocation of funds towards creating a survey so that the data is held confidential? Let's try that again, confidentially. And I think I don't know that we're at that point that we can answer that question now. So those are just some of the basic questions and comments that that we received as we move forward. So I think so let's plan that at our next meeting, we will you guys will come back with a proposed some tweaks and modifications to the charter that you have proposed here tonight, as well as a sense of criteria that we're looking for and questions to ask for people who are interested in being on the committee to help us evaluate applicants that we receive. And hopefully at our next meeting, we can actually approve that and move forward with that. So any other comments from the board members about that? Okay, and
Andrew, just
Tom.
one last comment. So thank you for all the people that have already applied, and we encourage everyone out there who has an interest in this or knows someone who they think might be a good contributor to this to have them apply. I think the pacing factor for us now is actually, I think, to Mark's point, sort of defining exactly how we want the composition of the board to look and work, what skills that we are looking for, and then making sure we've got all the best people from the community to fill those positions. So just if you can take a little bit of time in your week to think about people you might be good contributors to this and encourage them to apply, it'd be appreciated.
okay,
I think Mark had a question.
great. Mark, did you? I'm sorry, I missed it.
No, okay. Sorry.
No?
My bad.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you everybody who's out there who's been participating with your comments. It is much appreciated. As everybody, I hope can understand, it's a complicated and complex, they are complicated and complex issues that we are dealing with and trying to deal with. And, we're trying our best to get it right. So I hope that everybody will just bear with us and have a little bit more patience with us as we sort through the issues. So thank you all for that. So moving on to our 7:55 p.m. item. It's a community update on the COVID-19 situation and impacts on town operations during this period. So Jody.
Sure. So
Or actually, are we starting with, I'm sorry, we are starting with you about special town meeting. Okay.
So we decided we better get going on the special town meeting, and due to the COVID situation, we feel it probably needs to be held outside. I did check with the schools and the field is available. So I'm recommending to the board, and our bylaws allow it, that you call for a special town meeting on Saturday, which is different than what we usually do in the fall, October 17th at 10 a.m. at the Westford trustee field. So that's my number one request of you. And then if you are so moved to do that, then we do have a town meeting calendar that we came up with, timeline for you to approve. And we're asking you to open the warrant today. And if it's your pleasure, you may close it on September 1st at noon too. So a lot of action that I'm looking for tonight.
So I have Jody, I have a question about the timeline. We're opening the warrant tonight. It's August 11th and closing it September 1st. That's only about 3 weeks, which is a lot shorter time than we normally or routinely do for our warrant. Is there any possibility that we could keep the warrant open a bit longer, or do we start to get into dates with respect to backing out from the October 17th proposed date that you're that you're proposing? I'm just wondering if we can give folks, even if it's another week, just a little bit more time.
Sure. I mean, if you're comfortable, I don't see an issue with that. Patty, I think you're out there in the background. Do you see an issue if we give another week?
I don't think so. I asked Jeff Morissette about the planning board hearings. That was my concern with that. He gave me those dates. I think most of the things that are going to be on the town meeting are the ones that were postponed from the last one. All his zoning articles, they have discussed them. They'll have to discuss them again. But I think he had 1 or 2 others. But anyway, he gave me those dates. He seemed to be fine. As long as he could meet on those dates, he was good to go.
So I would just remind people that for a special town meeting, a citizen petition needs 100 certified registered voters' signatures, whereas the annual only needs 10. But I'm happy to add another week. My bad, this is a little late, been a little busy, and once we got focused, I thought, woof, we got to get moving on this thing. So I don't want to
So I'm
hold the
wondering-
town meeting later because I'm afraid it'll be too cold. We've had a couple blizzards on Halloween, so I think we should try to get this done earlier versus later.
So I'm wondering, our first meeting in September is September 8th. So I'm wondering if we could just keep the warrant open till the 8th and then close it on the 8th at our meeting.
If you want, you usually do vote to close it ahead of time, and we just get that out there. But if you'd rather close it that night, we could certainly do that too.
And Anita, you had your hand up?
Yeah, how do rain dates work? Do you need a rain date for this?
So we don't, if the weather is not good, then the chairman of the selectmen, the moderator, and I believe myself can call for a postponement. We are looking at the day after, which is Sunday. I think the moderator suggested we go a week to Saturday, but my concern is we've already put out all the chairs throughout the field, and that was no small feat in the spring, so I would prefer not to make the custodians take all the chairs down. We could hold it at 1 p.m. on Sunday to allow people to have their morning, but I would, as long as the weather's good, that's what I would recommend, but we don't have to cross that bridge yet. I told Andrea if it's raining, we should bring umbrellas, but I'm not sure she agrees with me.
Rain and I was thinking about this also, water and electricity and microphones may not go so well together, Jody.
Okay.
So do you need a motion to do that?
If you're so inclined, it would be to hold a special town meeting on October 17th at 10 a.m. at the field. You could approve the timeline with changing the date of the petition article closing on September 8th, either at noon or during your meeting, whatever you prefer, and approving the draft timeline.
I'll make that motion with moving the closing of the warrant at our meeting on September 8th.
Okay.
Second.
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Scott? Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
I saw Scott's, for the record, I saw his mouth move. Yes.
Right, I did too.
I'm just doing my clerk responsibilities, that's all.
And you're doing, thank you very much. You're doing them quite well.
My pleasure.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye.
Andrea, I don't know if you saw the question from John Cunningham about whether we were going to discuss the hate crime
So that is,
agenda item.
yeah, I was going to go back.
Okay.
John Cunningham points out that we decide to forego the discussion on the hate crimes that is listed in your agenda. Actually, I don't, I actually spoke with the chief this afternoon. I don't have a whole lot to report other than to say, it is an active investigation. Our police are working very hard on this, cooperating with several other agencies, and are following, they're following up everything they can with this investigation. So they continue to pursue it, and that's really all I have to say. I think the chief is listening. Yes, I see him listed. I don't know, Chief McEnany, do you have anything further that you want to add at this point?
Chief has a little hazard triangle next to his name. That may be an internet connectivity problem.
Maybe. Okay. Okay. Anyway, that's the update I have for folks. Diane Wood has a question. Do the existing citizens petitions need to now get additional signatures? And I believe the answer to that is no, that when we postponed all of them from the annual town meeting to fall, part of our agreement to do that was that those citizens petitions did not have to get additional signatures. But if you have a new citizens petition, that was not part of the annual town meeting that we postponed until, that everybody agreed to postpone until this special town meeting, then you do need to get 100 signatures. So. Okay, I think we're now at, with that, update on 2020 state primary election and request to sign the 2020 state primary warrant. Patty?
Why, that sounds like me. Look, there I am.
And there you are.
There I am. So the state primary, we are moving right along with that. As of today, we have 4,256 applications to vote by mail. Every day we get more and more. I want to give a shout out to my staff, Andy, Alyssa, and Marilyn, who are working not only during the day at work hours, but at night getting these ballots together. We want to tell people, oh, I got a couple things I want to tell people. First, we're getting your ballots out. Give us a chance. We're doing it. You can also drop off an application as well as the ballot in the box behind Town Hall, the big box that says vote on it that Paul Sterrett and Highway put together for me, and the library, because it's their book box. Thank you. And the other thing is, if you want to vote in the primary and you're not enrolled in a party, you need to tell us which ballot you want. A primary is like 4 elections in one, makes it all the more fun. And we have a couple of 100 people who did not tell us, so we have to call them. And actually, quite frankly, that's Marilyn who's been calling them, poor Marilyn. And we're getting that together. So things to remember, we will be having early voting in person as well. The state has decreed that we must do that too. I talked with Jody and asked about the fire station, the old fire station, and thought maybe we could use the bay. Keeps people out of the town hall, a lot of room, gives it a purpose. Might not be lovely, but it'll do the purpose. Plenty of room to social distance. So people can feel free to come. We're going to start on Saturday, August 22nd. It goes to the next Friday, the 28th. I'm open during business hours during the week. The state says I've got to be open Saturday and Sunday. With our population, I only have to be open 4 hours. Oh boy. Anyway, come and see me. We'll be looking for people. I think everybody's doing it by mail though, but we are available if you want to do it in person. And then of course there's the actual election day, which we will be doing in all the regular precincts. The town election went pretty smooth. I was pretty happy with that. And hopefully everything will continue to just be fine. People should always feel free to give us a call, send me an email if they have questions. I guess that's about it, unless anybody has any questions.
And I think, Patty, the only thing I saw from your memo that I think you didn't say is that the last day to register to vote in the primary is August 22nd. So
That's
if you
correct.
do want to vote in the state primary, you need to register by August 22nd. But other than that, I think you covered everything that was in your memo.
Okay, great.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, I don't see any. And
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so much to Patty and her entire staff
Okay,
who are
thank you.
working hard. You just finished an election and you're starting all over. I mean,
Yeah, they never kind of stopped. It's kind of an interesting year.
well, thank you very much.
Okay.
So
Jody,
we're asking you to vote to sign the 2020 state primary warrant.
So is there a motion to sign the 2020 state primary warrant?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Somebody? Thank you. All those in favor? Mark,
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Jody, do we have to come and or Patty, do we have to physically sign them, or can you use our electronic signatures?
You know, I think I could probably use your electronic signatures, but it looks better if you guys sign them in the real deal.
Okay,
Mine doesn't.
Come see me.
Oh,
all right, everybody go see Patty, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Fiscal year 2021 financial update, including CARES Act and FEMA reimbursement. Jody, is this you or Dan?
I'm going to just give you a very brief overview, but if you have questions, Dan, I believe, is in the background. But so I just wanted to update you. First of all, a little bit of good news. Well, there's actually several good news, but our new growth hasn't been certified yet, but I believe it exceeds our estimate. So that is good news, and that certainly will help us, but we don't have that yet. But right now we were running a $703,000 deficit, which certainly is lower than what we started with. But a couple of things have happened. One, I think I had been negotiating with Blue Cross to try to reduce our premium for 21 because of the fact people weren't going to the doctor, and they finally agreed to do so, and they reduced the town's premium by $125,000 and the employees' premium by $70,000. So that's really good news, and that lowered our deficit to $578,000. Then I was successful in bargaining with OPIU and CWA when I had a couple employees leave, and we changed some responsibilities and saved a couple of full-time jobs. So we saved another $125,000, which brought our deficit down to $453,000. Health insurance, we went out to bid. We had about 7 people bid, and I'm negotiating right now between 2 different bids. One was Blue Cross, which came in at a 5.1%, and the other is joining a group purchase self-insured plan, which I've been working with the Insurance Advisory Committee and the Public Employee Committee to negotiate that. If we went with Blue Cross, our deficit would be down to $416,000. If we go with the group joint purchase, we actually have a surplus of $87,000. That would save us $540,000 over what we budgeted. So this does come back to the Board of Selectmen. I'm supposed to have this decision made by September 1st by the board. So we are working very hard with the unions, and I did enlist Mark because of his financial capabilities to help us take a look at this. But a lot of excitement going on, and I think that at least right now, without knowing what the schools need, we're getting in better shape all the time. So that's just a brief overview. If anybody had any questions, if not, I'll move on.
Questions from anybody?
It's great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really
Thank
is
you.
fabulous.
We've been working hard, and we're not done. But anyway, so just
Oh, actually, I do
okay.
have one question, Andrew.
Go ahead, Jody. So
You okay, Andrew, if I ask a question? Yeah.
yeah,
okay.
yes, definitely.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask about this, the schools. I know that's like an hourly changing dynamic, but do we have this all, what you just referenced, excludes whatever might be happening with the schools, correct?
that's right. I don't have any idea what their needs are at this point. So I don't have anything on that.
Okay.
I've been keeping Bill up to date on where we're at with the town budget, but I have no idea. Most of what he needs should be covered by the CARES Act. And I was going to talk about that a little bit more. As you know, we were appropriated $2.1 million. Anything that he needs to handle COVID and running the schools should be covered by that. They should not hire staff because that probably is gone. But right now, we've only used 130,000 of that 2.1 million. So there's a lot of room there. And on the FEMA, we've used 126,000. So that's 75% reimbursed. So there's a lot of, I don't see the town's expenses being significant. you know, beyond what we've been doing so far. So it's really, the schools have a lot of room there. My assumption is if COVID continues that this will be extended. Right now. It's only through December 31st, but I don't know how they could pull the plug on it if we're not, you know, back to normal. So, you know, but I'm still continuing to try to find savings where we can and get ourselves in good shape. And I think this health insurance is very exciting. It's different, and we're exploring it, but it could kind of close that whole gap for us. There's no change in plan. It would go from Blue Cross to Harvard, but there's no plan design changes. And there's many enhancements for our Medicare, our retirees, and their premium would go down 21%, which is significant for people on fixed income. And our employees would be a zero, so they would not have any increased premium. So we're discussing it. They're interested, and I'm trying to answer all their questions. And I would love any of you to join our meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow if you're interested.
Yeah, and Jody, I will get you some feedback by the end of the weekend.
The weekend. Okay, clock's ticking, but that's great. So any questions, let me know, Mark, and happy to answer them. But so that's kind of just a quick update. If there aren't any questions, I was going to update you on the rec department after school program, but we have not gotten this figured out yet. I heard today that perhaps they might offer Millennium a couple of classrooms to us to hold after school programs. But I don't know yet. So the dollars that we put in the spreadsheet that you got are based on not having that information yet. So as soon as we know, we'll update you. The other thing I would say before I move on is what I propose is that I come back on 8/25 at your next meeting and talk about what's on the warrant and get guidance from you. I don't know if you'd like to jointly post with FinCom and school committee, but we kind of really need to know what direction you're putting us in as we move forward to town meeting with all the capital articles. And if you want any budgetary changes, I mean, we kind of need to start talking about that pretty soon.
Yeah.
So the last thing on this list is I was talking to Andrea about how hard staff have been working throughout this whole COVID situation, and we know money's tight, but was there a possibility you might consider giving a day off, a comp day to town staff for all their efforts during this whole experience? If you are so inclined, I would say we don't want to create an overtime situation. So it would be a comp day off with no overtime situation. And for firefighters, I would limit it to an 8-hour shift since they're 24-hour shifts they have. But that's up to you. It was just something we thought we might bring and ask.
So just, oh, go ahead, Tom.
Just a question. I know we're trying to at least be aware of how things are working townwide with both schools and town staff. So I don't know if there's been any discussion. I don't know if the schools would be in a position to do anything similar, but if we're going to do it on the town side and wasn't going to be able to happen on the school side for any set of good reasons, just I think it'd be useful for us to know just for townwide consistency.
So I guess I would just mention that the school benefits are very different than the town benefits. The school admin have 6 weeks vacation, you know, lots of different benefits. So it isn't apples to apples. If we want to start going down that path, I'm happy to start those discussions, but their benefit structure is very different than the town.
I think it'd be fair. I think it'd be fair, Jody, if you thought about it with Andrea, and it is really different, and they're about to kick off school year, and their whole schedule is really programmed really differently in terms of the way they work. I just wanted to ask the question, but I'm not suggesting necessarily that we start a whole effort here. Just wanted your read on it.
The town employees all came back to work June 22nd, those that were remote, and everybody's been back since. And at this point, I don't have any plans to change that. So it is a little different, but anyway.
Okay, thanks.
I just,
satisfied.
you know, I thought it was a way to, just, say thank you and you know, show our appreciation to all our, you know, town staff and employees. Just, you know, we recognize how hard they've been working. It's been a difficult situation, you know, and you know, it's just a show of appreciation. I thought it would be a way to, and just a nice gesture to show everyone. Yep, Anita?
Does that require a vote or?
I was just going to ask Jody, do you want us to vote
I mean,
on
it
that, Jody?
doesn't, but I think just knowing that you all support this would be great. So.
So are you going to make that motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve a comp day for our employees. I don't know what the wording is.
Not
overtime.
Overtime and
an 8-hour shift for,
okay.
Yeah, for firefighters. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we are at our 8:25 p.m. item, which is a review of the town common usage policy and consider establishing a flag policy. And I also think if we have questions, our town council is also here with us tonight. I saw him pop up on our screen a moment ago. So this is, you know, as we all know, this is a continuing discussion that came out of the request several weeks ago for usage of the town common to celebrate India Independence Day, as well as raising the flag. And it came, you know, there were questions asked, do we have a policy, what the policy is, and do we need to amend that policy? It turns out, yes, we do actually have policies for both. We actually do have a flag policy that I forgot that we put in place that will actually, 2012, I think, that we put in place in 2012. But we have, town council, I believe, has provided us with some drafts of some revisions to both the use of the town common as well as the flag policy. So why don't we start with the town common policy first, and then we can move to the flag policy. So if people have comments about that, the flag, about the town common policy, comments, suggestions, questions?
Did we pull it up on the screen or?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing.
Okay.
Eric, can you get it up for us?
Sure, just give me this 1 second.
I know you can.
Sure.
So Andrew, while we're, oh, there we go.
Yep. Go ahead, Mark.
So Greg, how are you?
Hey, Eric, that's the flag. Can you put the use of the common one up first? Great, thank you. Although this is the application, maybe go to
It has it on the bottom.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Mark.
yeah, so as I said to Jody in an email this afternoon, I read this and then I'm like, why are we even involved? So it's like, there's really, like, you know, I know we all like our power and everything else, but, you know, I'm looking at this and it's, there's very little I was asking about, so what are the denial, what would be reasons for denial? And they're really, pretty innocuous and basic. And, Greg, you can respond, obviously. But I'm like, why are we, this looks like something the town manager could do without guests getting involved, because we don't have a lot of degrees of freedom here anyway. So anyway, that's my only point on this whole thing.
The only answer I have to your question, Mark, is that historically, it's always been that way. Doesn't mean it has to stay that way. I'm just saying that historically, it's always been that way.
Well, there seems to be we like to change history these days. So I'm in favor of doing that if it makes our life simpler.
Greg, is there an issue if the board gives the authority to the town manager?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Jody and Eric, I apologize, but no, there is no legal reason why you couldn't assign this to the office of the town manager. As Mark pointed out, there is very limited discretion that can be exercised here. And, I know it looks like a lot to put in this, but it's really recommended for the protection of the town, because, the town common is what the courts consider a traditional public forum, which is entitled to the highest degree of protection under the First Amendment. And under the way that the courts analyze those types of issues is that you cannot impose any restrictions on the exercise of speech in a traditional public forum unless the restrictions are content neutral and are substantially related to an important governmental interest. And what is sort of absolutely forbidden in this area is allowing what the courts describe as unfettered discretion to grant or deny a permit. And the idea being that you can't put town officials in a position of being able to use their decision-making authority to deny individuals or groups the opportunity to use the property based on the content of their speech. And so what the intent here is to put forward a series of content neutral requirements that really just go to the timing of when you can use the property and the manner in which you can use the property, and primarily really to just ensure that the use of the property does not, or that the event doesn't cause damage to the property. So we have things like, you can't put in any permanent structures, and if you cause any damage, you have to repair it. You have to protect the town with respect to liability. You have to promise that you're going to comply with the laws. Things of that nature that really just go to, the physical use of the property as opposed to what the property is going to be used for.
Okay, so I guess the answer is, yep, Jody? Go ahead, Jody.
Before you take this vote,
Yes.
first of all, I'm fine bringing this to you. I've been doing that for 12 years, but there are things like the farmers market that you have traditionally heard and made decisions upon. And if you change this policy, that will be changing that to putting that in my lap. Happy to do that if that's what you'd like to do. But, just that's one of the things that you do hear about, and people do get publicity when they go to you, like the strawberry, festival and some of those other things. But totally up to you, and I will take it on if that's what your wishes are.
So here was, Tom, let me just finish, Tom, and then so here was my thought actually, is that, it doesn't take much time on our agenda to approve these things. One of the things that I was going to say, Jody, that you just said is that it's an opportunity for whatever group to get some publicity that their event is being held on the town common. And it's also a way, you know, it's a way to inform the community, and a way to just inform us is, you know, these are things that are going on in our community. So I personally don't see it as being all that burdensome to have these come to us for our approval, despite the fact that, you know, there are very, 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 very few reasons that we could say no or deny it. I mean, we had one a couple of weeks ago simply because it was a conflict of dates and usage of the common, and, you know, we remedied and rectified that tonight. So, but for me personally, you know, it's kind of a way to sort of keep track of, hey, what's going on, who's doing what, and what's happening in our community. So I, for one, you know, like seeing this come before us. Tom.
I just want to make sure you saw Catherine Fanis' comment.
Yeah, I
just want to make sure that we.
I'll get.
Great.
Yeah. You know, and Catherine, yes, we have seen those. She wants to know if the added language will be brought to the attention of the Architectural Access Board for review before adoption, and also wanted to know if these changes have been brought to the attention of the chair of the Commission on Disabilities for review by the members. And I don't think either of those has happened yet. Jody?
I'm not sure that the changes are substantive and would impact those groups. I mean, the Commission on Disability is really concerned with the lift, and I don't think we made any changes to that. So, and I don't think the Architectural Access Board probably has concerns, but I'm happy to send it to them too.
Okay. Any other, I have a couple of comments about the policy that you drafted, Greg, but before I get to my questions, anybody else from the board have any questions or comments? Okay. Okay. Greg, and also Jody, just a couple of questions. One of the provisions is that a request to use the common shall not be considered an emergency under any circumstance. And I do know that in the past, when we have had a request to use the common that for some reason has not come, you know, within a timely manner for one of our meetings or comes between the two meetings, we have at times held, you know, a meeting for that purpose to approve the use of the commons. So I guess I'm wondering if either we need this, we need that sentence in there, or we can modify it to say something like, you know, at the discretion of the board. Because I know that we have, as I said, we have in the past, you know, scheduled a meeting for that very purpose when, for whatever reason, we haven't been able to talk about it in a regular scheduled meeting. So that was one of my comments. The second one was, you know, we're listing Ellen Hardy, Bob Schaffer, and Gloria Gilbert as the people to contact to use the lift. I'm pretty sure Ellen and Bob are still okay with that. I just want to make sure Gloria is on board with having her name listed there. So Jody, I'm wondering if you can reach out and just check with her. And then my last comment was, paragraph 15 talks about the applicant shall be required to carry insurance with coverage and amount satisfactory to the town. Have we always required that? I'm actually thinking about the individuals who want to do their yoga on town common in a couple of weeks, and you know, are we requiring them to carry insurance coverage for that?
I don't think that we've ever required, I could be wrong, and Eric, jump in if I am, but other than, well, I'm just trying to think about the, we do require insurance from the vendors when that came to the farmer's market, but
Yeah.
I don't, oh, there's Eric.
Oh, you're correct, Jody. I was just going to say, typically for town common use requests, we do not require insurance.
But we did when when the town ran the farmer's market, we did request insurance certificates from each of them. But generally speaking, no, we don't. We have not done that.
So I guess I'm wondering whether we have to require that for everybody, or again, if that is something that we decide on a case-by-case basis. For example, we've required the vendors for the farmer's market to do it, but it seems to me a little excessive if you're requiring, yoga instructors to do it. And I suspect they probably would have a difficult time getting insurance coverage for that. So, perhaps we could just modify that a bit. Scott?
Can you just change that? So the applicant shall carry or require that they be carried. We just said the applicant may be required to carry.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Greg.
Thank you. Just a couple of points I wanted to add. So with respect to the provision for emergency consideration, we could take that out if it's if that's what the pleasure of the board is. I had put that in there more for the board's convenience and staff, so that people understood that they had to plan sufficiently in advance in order to allow the town to make these decisions through the proper channels. But if your practice has been to allow these applications to come in between meetings or at the last minute, I don't have any issues with taking that out. In terms of the Access Board and the Disability Commission, in my opinion, there's nothing in here that has changed that would affect the decisions of the Access Board. The Access Board was concerned with access to the bandstand and the lift to the bandstand. Those provisions are completely unchanged. This really just goes to the use of the common itself. However, if Jody or Eric just wants to, confirm with the Access Board that that's okay, then that should be fine. And then in terms of the insurance, I'm wondering whether maybe we could put a provision in there regarding a cutoff as to like the number of people that are expected or the size of the event. As I said before, one of the things that the courts disfavor is the ability of public officials to exercise discretion over whether and on what terms to allow an event. And one of the concerns could be that an official who does not want an event to go forward could require insurance at such staggering amounts that the event can't occur. And so again, it's not that I would suggest anybody would do that, but for the town's protection, you don't know what somebody is going to consider to be an amount that constitutes a barrier. And so either if it's never been your intent practice to require insurance, we can take it out altogether, or we could put in some more objective cutoff, to say that for events in which it's expected that there will be more than 50 people or 100 people, insurance will be required.
So the only thing I'd say is we've been having a lot of events, and I don't think those groups have insurance. So we've never really required it unless as I said, I mean, if the farmer's market where they're actually selling things and making money, I see that as being something that the public might object to. And we haven't been sued yet, knock on wood somewhere.
Yeah, Jody, I have the same, I agree with you, and I have the same concern. We've never required it. We have had in the past, gatherings on the common for various, by various different groups. I mean, I think of hopefully we'll be able to do this again, but I think of prom night, okay?
Right.
And all of the kids and their parents who gather on the common, for prom night. And are we now going to start to require, and Greg, that's well over hundreds of people, okay? And, are we going to start to require insurance for that? I think that's a rabbit hole that we don't really want to go down right now.
I mean, we'd be
Just my-
limited by the $100,000 cap, wouldn't we, Greg?
Yes, and there might be other defenses as well. And, I would imagine that your own insurance would likely cover anything that happens there, and you can certainly confirm with your insurance carrier. So again, yeah, a lot of this is just suggestions,
Yeah.
Based on other use of town property policies that I've worked on. So, if you're comfortable not requiring insurance based on, your past experience, then that's fine. I don't think there's any legal requirement that applicants be required to have insurance.
Any comments from the board? Any thoughts? Okay.
And then just the final thing I would add, I'm sorry, is that in response to the comments that I received from Mark earlier today regarding the ability of the town to deny an application outright, I think he's correct that we didn't address that in the draft that was provided. But I did find language that the Supreme Court has approved of, which has general reasons that a permit could be denied, which include incomplete applications or applications that contain misrepresentations, if the applicant has damaged the property on prior occasions and has not paid for the damage, when a permit has been granted to an earlier applicant for the same time and place, or when the intended use would present an unreasonable danger to the health and safety of the public or employees of the town. So that's something that you might want to consider putting in here to give you that extra layer of protection in case a permit has to be denied.
Yep, Mark?
Yeah, so I would agree with that. And thank you, Greg, for looking into that. But I think it would be smart for us to do that so that it's very clear.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So I guess I would suggest if we're done that I bring this back to our next meeting because there's been a lot of changes here. So I want to make sure I capture everything and you're comfortable with it.
That makes sense. So why don't we bring it back on 8/25?
Okay.
Okay, so now let's go to the flag policy.
Much less controversial.
So as people saw, we did have a flag policy. It was not it wasn't, I wouldn't call it a robust flag policy. In fact, Jody and I were talking this afternoon, and once she brought it to our attention, I do remember now it being enacted, and I remember I can't remember the exact circumstances, but it had to do with honoring residents and veterans of Westford who passed away. And so at that time we modified, I think we modified it, or maybe this was a brand new policy, But we made sure that there was something included that would honor a veteran who was residing in Westford or a former elected official from Westford. So that was the catalyst for that policy. But now, in light of our request and approval, at least for the flag of India, we have a new policy that's been drafted for us. So do folks have comments about the policy or questions? Nope, none? Wow. Mark, I was going to say, I have a question, but Mark?
I'm very shy. So I had asked also about, why are we making this so complicated in ourselves? Aren't there federal or state guidelines that would help us just mimic those and, not have to do something, try to recreate the wheel here? And so Greg did respond to my request, and, like all good federal and state laws, they don't really exist much, and they don't really stand up. So I think the state one, which talks about the prohibition of displaying any foreign flag on public property. So I don't know if our the current policy says that, but it should, even though, as Greg points out, not quite sure if it got challenged constitutionally that it would hold up. But I think at a minimum, we should make sure that that's there. And then there's a whole set of guidelines, I think some of which we've talked about before on the federal side. So, I wish we had kind of a best in class policy that we could just mimic. And I don't know if we've done that, or if we've evaluated that.
So Greg?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So yeah, as I explained to Mark earlier, there is no specific federal or state statutes that regulate the flying of flags other than the American flag. And your existing policy also relates to the flying of the American flag. The purpose of this policy was premised on the possibility that the town would obtain a second permanent flagpole and then would take requests from residents to fly different types of flags on that flagpole. And the risk of doing that without having a policy is that once you allow one flag to be flown, you leave yourself vulnerable to having to say yes to every flag that people want to fly. And so the benefit of having the policy, as I explained the last time that I met with you, is to clarify that if there's going to be a flagpole, it is going to be the town's flagpole, and that any flags flown from that flagpole are going to display messages that are considered the town's message, as opposed to a message from a private party. And, which means that you have significantly greater latitude in deciding what can and cannot be flown, because now you're speaking for the town rather than letting others speak for themselves. And with respect to, sort of trying not to reinvent the wheel, the majority of this policy came from the policy that is in effect for the Boston City Hall. And the reason that I picked that policy to use is because that policy has specifically been reviewed by the First Circuit Court of Appeals and has been upheld as satisfying constitutional requirements. So the majority of this does come from that Boston model, which has been reviewed by the courts. And again, it's just to give the town this layer of protection to make it clear that no person is going to have a right to have their flag flown, but rather the town or the board is going to have discretion on a case-by-case basis as to whether and to what extent to fly any flag from that pole.
Okay.
Scott?
I guess two questions. First, if we have, when I voted for the display of the Indian flag, it was because it's a sovereign nation, and if we are asked to fly the flag of Sweden or Paraguay, it's fine because they're all sovereign nations and it's all fair. When you get into causes, different people in power will feel different about different causes. So I guess two questions are: one, can we restrict the policy to only the flags of nations and not causes? And a second, I guess, if cause A says, I want my flag, and we say yes, and cause B says, I want my flag, and say no, can we really say no? I mean, I know you're saying that you've got language here, but in a court, would that really hold up, or would we be told, once you say yes to a cause, you say yes to all causes that aren't, of course, hateful?
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. So, as I said, I mean, obviously I can't guarantee any particular result when, we don't know what's going to happen. But, the court has made a very clear distinction between what they refer to as government speech and what they refer to as private speech. And the First Circuit analyzed a permanent flagpole as being public speech because the flagpole is synonymous with display of messages supported by the city itself. Another example has been statues in public parks are considered government speech because they're so connected to the fabric of the community, and that putting them there is such a major endeavor that it's not considered, you don't have a private right to put a permanent statue on public property. Another example was, you've probably seen those license plates that have like the Red Sox logo or the Bruins logo on them. Well, in some places they like to put Confederate flag logos on there. And the court held that that was considered to be government speech, as opposed to what we talked about with the common, which is private speech, a place where individuals go to express their ideas, whether or not the community or those in power support the ideas. And so with respect to government speech, because it's your speech, you get to decide. And whether that's flags of sovereign nations or whether it's causes, it's a cause or an idea or a message that you are saying on behalf of the town of Westford, we wish to support this message. Now, it may be that there's never a message that you find rises to the level of, you saying we want to broadcast this message to the whole community, but maybe there will be, and you'll have the discretion to decide that. And the flip side of it is that while you may not be subject to legal liability for deciding which messages you support, you are held liable to the voters if you decide to support messages that are not broadly enough accepted by members of the community. So, it is somewhat of a heavy burden to have to bear. And, I wouldn't recommend that this be put on the town manager's office or an administrative officer, because it really is a community-wide decision that you would be making if you decide to go down this road.
Okay. We have a comment from John Cunningham, who writes, with respect to paragraph 8 of the flag policy, I suggest that the following be added. In no case shall the flag of the United States displayed on town property be lowered to be replaced by any other flag whatsoever. I think that's implied, but, I think to make it absolutely, I mean, I don't have any problem adding that to make it absolutely clear. I'm sorry, Tom, did you have your hand up or were you just waving at me? Okay. I guess the only other, the one comment that I had was in paragraph 12. It says generally the flag will be flown for 24 hours unless an alternative duration of time is otherwise requested in the application. I know with the flag for India, because I made the suggestion that we decided that the flag needed to come down at the end of the event, or the end of the day before it gets dark. And I guess it would be my suggestion or my preference that at least for flags that are associated with events, that those flags come down at the conclusion of the event. And maybe we say something like that, and no later than 24 hours, or no longer, the flag can fly no longer than 24 hours. Greg?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I think that both of these issues may have been dealt with in some late changes based on the newly discovered 2012 policy. So in the flag policy, I added a paragraph that says, nothing herein shall be deemed to alter or rescind the town's April 24th, 2012 policy for the display of the American flag on the permanent flagpole on the town common, provided, however, that the select board reserves the right to allow other flags to be flown on temporary flagpoles erected in connection with events held on the common, and or to allow other flags to be flown in accordance with this policy. And then on the common policy, I added that there was a section that says the applicant may display banners, flags, and signs associated with the event. Banners, flags, and signs associated with the event may be placed on the common no earlier than 48 hours prior to the event and must be removed within 1 hour after the event. No person shall place a banner, flag, or sign on the common that is not directly associated with a permitted event.
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments? Scott?
Well, that does raise a question to me, though, because we allow sandwich boards on the common to advertise things that might be occurring at the academy that aren't events on the common. So do we just negate the ability to have our sandwich board signs on the common?
Greg?
Are those are town signs though, correct?
One thing, I think that the Westford Academy Bazaar may have a sign. I forget now what is up there, but that was one that comes to mind.
Actually, I don't think they are all town events. I think, the Strawberry Festival puts signs up, don't they, Tom?
Yep.
And I think like the Boy Scouts sometimes put sandwich signs up. Sports, I can think of like the registration for lacrosse, baseball. So I don't know that they're all town events, Greg.
Okay.
You can think about it.
So I can add something. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. You moved. Jody, you moved.
I don't know how that happened. Eric messed with me. So we do have a sandwich board policy, but that is controlled by my office, and we allow four at any given time in 1 week, I believe, and they have to advertise community events. So there is a sandwich board policy.
So Greg, I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would ask the town manager to send me a copy of that policy, and then we can incorporate it into this just so there's consistency.
Yeah. Okay. Other comments? All right, so why don't we do the same thing with the flag policy, Jody, that we're doing with the common policy, particularly because you need to send Greg the sandwich board policy. Let's incorporate the changes that we've in the discussion that we've had tonight, and we can put it back on for our 8:25 agenda. Okay. Let me just make sure. Yep, we do not have any other questions. All right. So, thank you very much, Greg. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Great.
Have a good
Night, everyone.
Have a good evening. Have a good evening. Okay, old and new business. The first one is consider reaffirming prior vote to sponsor a zoning bylaw amendment to reflect inclusive language and other ministerial changes and refer the matter to the planning board for their recommendation. So I think this is just basically reaffirming what we did last spring or winter, whenever we did it. Is that right, Jody? Okay. Do we need a motion? Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, Scott,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have a request from the Town and School Safety Task Force to appoint 5 residents at large for the full terms expiring on June 30th, 2023. And those individuals are Omar Bamil Augustina Garrett, Emily Gilstrap, Jeffrey Hillen, Carolyn Jerzalo, and Omar Larino. I think all of these folks are actually, I believe, online if we want to hear from them. So what is the pleasure of the board? Scott?
I would just note that we had 5 applications for 5 positions, and the Town and School Safety Task Force voted to approve these 5 individuals.
Okay. Jody?
Did you want to mention that Megan McCarthy withdrew her application because she is listed on the agenda?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. So yes, she had withdrawn her application, so wasn't that we were not including her. So if nobody has any need or desire to hear from the applicants themselves, then I will entertain a motion to appoint these 5 individuals to the Town and School Safety Task Force.
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Scott,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
and Mark?
Aye.
Yeah, okay, aye. Okay, we have a request to approve 2020 annual reappointments for committee and board members as listed in the meeting packet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, I'll start back with Anita,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
And Scott.
Aye.
And then we have a request to designate a member of the select board to the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments for a full term expiring on June 30th, 2021. If folks remember, Elizabeth was our designee to NIMCOG. So we need a volunteer. It meets once a month, I think.
So tempting.
So Does anybody want to volunteer?
I'm all filled up.
I know we all are all filled up right now. That's the problem. Anita, are you volunteering?
Yeah, I'll volunteer. I'll do it.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Do we have to vote for it?
I don't think so.
I think we all know how we feel.
I know how I feel.
Gratitude. Yeah.
Grateful. All right. We've already done our consent agenda. We've already done the minutes for approval. Are there any board reports or updates? Tom?
This is a reference to a question that was asked earlier about follow-up related to how other communities had responded to hate speech. And I can mention very briefly that I was connected with Rabbi Mike, the leader of the temple in Acton, to talk about how Acton responded. It might be best, given the time, if I try to reach a few others and then can share what I've learned at the next meeting. Or I could share what I've learned from Reverend Mike now. I'm sorry, Rabbi Mike. Excuse me.
I was about to say Rabbi Mike. You know, I think, why don't you, Tom, why don't you share what you've learned from him now, okay?
Sure. So basically, I asked if he'd seen things that he thought were particularly effective following on to events like we've experienced. He mentioned two things in particular. One is that he had participated in the Westford Academy Diversity Day back when that was still being held. He said he thought that was a very effective event, and he strongly recommended that we restart and continue the Diversity Day, which he thought was really a standout event. His main recommendation, though, was that we hold some sort of forum to promote the understanding in the community of how hate speech, and a swastika in particular, affects the Jewish community and really all marginalized communities. He said sometimes in communities it's seen categorized more as vandalism or kid stuff, but he said that the swastika in particular has a particular effect on the Jewish community and also on marginalized communities. And he said that he had seen communities successfully hold events where people could share the effect that had and just raise awareness in the town and amongst the various town bodies, the particular and powerful effect that can have. And that he's seen that be a constructive step because it just helps everyone understand what a serious and shocking and terrible event that is. And not that anyone was dismissing it, but just that people can fully absorb the impact of it.
Well, maybe that's something we can follow up with and perhaps, in the fall, later on in the fall, perhaps try and organize such a forum and provide that.
I think it'd be great. And Rabbi Mike was very happy to help facilitate and bring people to that event and make sure the community has a good and broad understanding of the kind of impact that has.
Great. I think that would be a terrific thing to do, and we can take a look at doing that, as I said, in the fall. Great, thank you. Any other board updates? Okay, seeing none. Town managers report.
Yes, so we received a request for you to delegate to the Council on Aging the authority to execute a Westford rental assistance program or agreements, with landlords and tenants. I believe Nancy Cook is out there and Jennifer Claro, if you're interested in talking to them about why.
Do folks want to hear from Jennifer or Nancy, or was the information that we had in our packet sufficient?
I'm fine.
I'm good.
Okay, somebody say something.
Careful what you ask for.
I'm fine with it too. It makes perfect sense that they be the people who are, looking at the applications, approving them and executing them. So is there a motion to grant them that authority?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then we have a request from the Council on Aging to accept a grant in the amount of $8,398 to provide nutrition and/or outreach services in response to COVID, awarded from Elder Services of the Merrimack Valley, Inc.
Is there a motion to accept?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second? Okay. All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
And thank you very much to the Elder Services of Merrimack
With a
Valley.
yes.
Aye, right.
Next, we have a request to expend $5,000 from the lease of town buildings revolving account, which is for Road and Bush, for repairing, restoring, and mitigating 2 water intrusion damages.
Is there a motion to
And-
approve?
So moved.
Scott, do you have any questions?
Brett has
I'm also
Scott, I
curious,
think
again, you know, we still have a issue with, is this related to the renovation or just because it happened? I mean, it seems like we have a pattern of buildings that's not that old, having, you know, money being spent.
One of them was because of a bird's nest that got in the gutters.
Eric, can you speak to what happened here? I'm
Yeah, that's correct. So there's on the flat roof portion of the building, one of the roof drains got clogged and it ended up flooding into the building because the water built up on the flat roof. So we had some water damage, and there actually was a second location. So this is just the $5,000 insurance deductible we have in our policy through Maya.
Okay, thanks. I just want the taxpayers to know that we didn't, you know, incur costs from a renovation, but it's the cost from Mother Nature.
Right. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye.
Then I have a request to approve the following contracts. Arthur J. Gallagher and Company to service town's broker of record for the town's health insurance coverages with the anticipated savings of about $36,750, which is not in what I already shared with you earlier, so that would reduce our deficit even more.
And
And do you want us to do the 2 separate, Jody? There's another one.
I'm sorry, I have
And
to
there
turn the
are-
page.
And there are purchase orders too. Do you want to do
I'm
them all at once?
sorry. Yeah, I forgot to turn the page. Okay, and amend a contract with Ty and Bond for professional engineering on Kersey Circle Water Main Replacement Project in the amount of $40,000. Purchase orders, Firematic Supply Company for MSA Complete Altair multi-gas meters and SCADA equipment for the fire department in the amount of $342,615. Verizon Wireless for cellular charges in the amount of $97,000. Verizon for voice and data lines in the amount of $35,000. Rave Mobile Safety for reverse 911 in the amount of $13,700, and Northern Tree Service for emergency tree removal as a result of the recent storm in the amount of $12,668.40.
Any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
so moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, all those in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Anita's frozen on my screen.
Oh.
You were
I see
before.
her.
Anyway. There you
We're
go.
back.
You guys hear me?
Mark?
Yes.
That's okay. Scott?
Yes.
And I. All right.
Thank you.
And we have correspondence. Before we move to waive, I have a question. So we got notice from the district attorney, Marion Ryan, about funds being available for a shared street grant. Are we going to apply for another grant?
If we can, we apply for every grant that we can. So as long as there's no reason we can't, we will.
Okay.
Motion to waive reading of the remaining correspondence.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye.
And a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? And I'm going to do this by raised hands. Everybody in favor?
Just by the way,
Okay.
there's a hockey game that's been going on since 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's in the 5th full 20-minute overtime. Just
Oh my, who's playing in that game?
Tampa and Columbus.
Okay. We can
And
all
I-
adjourn.
Well, and Andrea got us through this agenda 25 minutes early too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank
Makes
you.
up for all my other late running meetings. Anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you for
Partially,
everybody who
partially.
and attended our meeting tonight. Everybody stay safe and be well, and good night, Westford.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Good night.